Welcome, Dino, to Metallarium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you. Well, especially for me, we are talking for the second time. We spoke last year for the first last album from Fear Factory, and now we are speaking about the Recoded, a mixed album from a lot of songs with Fear Factory
Yep.
history. So, we're starting. How have you been during the last year from the last album to now?
I've been great. I did a lot of touring with Soulfly and of course Cavalera. I was just in Peru. Unfortunately, we got there. Our flight got there late, so I didn't really get much chance to see around the city. But from what I saw, it looked very beautiful. I can't wait to go back again. But I've been very busy touring on the road and also working on new Fear Factory record. We officially started pre-production on a new album.
Great, that's a great news to hear. So, and I think the next question is a common one. Why did you decide to do this stuff with all songs or the a lot of songs from Fear Factory?
Well, it started way back in 1992 when we put out our first record, Soul of a New Machine. I was really a big fan of electronic and industrial and techno music. We were on tour and, back in 1992, 1993, we were in Europe and we saw how really big the techno rave industrial scene was out there. And there was a lot more clubs and a lot more venues that were playing this kind of music, more so than what I saw here in the United States. And we just fell in love with it. And so we decided to do our first remix EP called Fear is the Mind Killer. And that's when Reese Fulber and Bill Lieb worked on that first remix. And then we decided to do it on Demanufacture, and we did one called Remanufacture,
Mm.
and we just wanted to combine the styles, and we saw that it really worked well together. um, so then fast forward 27 years later, I decided to do it again for Aggression Continuum. I just like it. I just like adding the different elements and see what different people can put together and just see how it works, and blending music. And
Mm.
I really enjoy it, and I think it's really cool. I think it's like I always felt like it's an extension of the album. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people really enjoy it, so that's why I do it. I mean, not just other people, but mainly myself.
Mm, okay, so I want talking about your last experience here in Latin America with well, especially with Soulfly, etc. How was the reception to playing all songs from Sepultura? You played with Soulfly, so a lot of a lot of work you were there. So,
I mean, going to South America. I mean, I've been through South America many times, but I haven't been to Peru. Peru was my first time going there with the Cavallero brothers, and that was amazing. I mean, the shows are killer. Of course, playing with Max and Igor is definitely a big honor for me, and going to those countries and with those guys and getting to experience it with those guys was amazing. Especially when we got to Brazil, their home country, and just seeing the crowd's reaction out there was amazing. It was definitely a great experience that I'll definitely cherish for a long time. Now, going back like 32 years, or 31 years, about 1991 is when I first met them, Max and Igor, and we've been friends ever since.
mm, okay, nice to hear that. So,
Yeah.
I'm talking about one aspect, but because you play with, well, you did a tour here in Latin America playing Roots.
Yep.
One of the I think one more controversial albums talking about the new metal, this kind of stuff, and also I read some interviews in the past from you that you say that you create the new metal in this aspect. So for you, what do you think about now? The new metal is very involved, especially in your music, because Digimortal has a lot of influence from the new metal. No, it's not new metal for all, but it has a lot of it.
I can't say that I created new metal, but I definitely was, probably the early, um, well, definitely one of the early pioneers of it. In the sense that, because to me, new metal was a mixture of groove, hip hop, and heavy metal. You know what I mean? It was a mixture of all that. where other bands have taken it much further, but I've had groove elements, dating back to, the first album, Sullivan and Machine, with a song called Scapegoat. There's a very particular type of riffing in that, which was very much an influential, which I've heard the riff, that type of riff played a few times through various other artists. But back in the day, 1991, we worked with a producer called Ross Robinson, who did our first record called Concrete. The record never came out till 11 years later, but so the record never got released, but Ross was able to use it to shop to other bands, and we were able to use that record to shop to the record labels. That's pretty much how we got signed. But Ross also used it as a way to to try to pick up other bands like Korn, and so and so on and so on. And so that's kind of like that's kind of like why I like to say that's kind of was like the birth of all that. And obviously bands like Korn mixing hip hop and metal pretty much took it to the next stratosphere. Of course, Limp Bizkit and all that other stuff. But yeah, during Digimortal, we definitely did have a lot of the groovier elements that were more associated with the new metal vibe. Particularly a couple of songs. One was called "Back the Fuck Up," which was done with Be Real from Cypress Hill, and another one was called Digimortal. The song was called Digimortal. Kind of had that definitely that new metal riffing type of vibe. But it is what it is.
Okay, okay. Well, now as you said a few minutes ago that you are working on the new album from Fear Factory. So, what do people expect from this new album? More a continuation for Aggression Continue, or perhaps you, as you redid the manufacturer, I saw a lot activity from the old work from Fear Factory. Perhaps you have influence from your own work to know this new work, or perhaps something new.
Yeah, I would say that so far the songs that I've written for that probably have a more influence of Mechanize and Genexus and Aggression Continue.
Mm.
It's more of a fluent influence of those three albums so far.
Mm.
Uh, you know, going back to demanufacture, some records that you create, some art that you create, sometimes it's not easy to replicate. And
Yeah.
so, you know, although some fans would probably like to hear that, and some fans probably not. But I just whatever comes out comes out. I don't necessarily say, "Hey, I want to write it in this style" or whatever. I just do what comes from the heart and what comes from my head, and just go with that. I go with my gut feeling of. But I definitely like to push things as best as they could be.
Nice to hear, because I expect the new one. Hope soon. So into this aspect, I last year I asked you about. I remember very well. I asked you about Divine Heresy, and you told me,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that probably we will see another album. Who knows what happened at that time?
Yeah.
But now with a few with the news and Metal Injection, Metal Hammer, etc., you are united again, Divine Heresy, and I think you are recording a new album from them with the Heresy, and now you are use a voice with you are used Lauren Hart as a new vocalist. So perhaps do you advance all songs from the Divine Heresy album, or perhaps is for the coming years? No, who knows?
Well, I can't say that the band is united
Mm-hmm.
because unfortunately, I am the only member of the band. Any past members of the band will not be involved at all. Rest in peace to Joe Payne, who passed away a couple years ago. But uh, yeah, so I will be moving forward with Divine Heresy for sure. But unfortunately, right now, not unfortunately, but unfortunately for Divine Heresy, I am really concentrating on the new Fear Factor because that has to be ready and it has to be right. So I'm taking my time with that. And right now, I do have stuff written for Divine Heresy, but that has to be put on the back burner until I'm done with the new Fear Factory because that's the main thing right now. And we are still under heavy negotiations with record companies. Fear Factory is. So we are, definitely working on that as well.
Mm. Okay, and with this departure one, I last year Nuclear Blast divided. No, the Nuclear Blast by inside with a lot of bands, and now ours with Atomic Fire Records, the new label from Marcus. So how you decide to which label are you? Because Marcus is with you, so I signed with you, and now they have own label, and now you are still with Nuclear Blast. But the next album will be both for both. Who knows what happened for the future?
Well, yeah. Well, Nuclear Blast has the obligation to uh, work the last record, which is Recoded.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I will choose whatever is best for Fear Factory, whatever record company is best for Fear Factory.
Nah, okay. That's a great news because because I see a lot of bands signing with Naples Records, with other label, Atomic Fire, a lot of things. So I don't know about if Fear Factory will record with with the last records. So into this aspect, talking about the labels now, as you can see now, are the metal scene nowadays are more stronger because we have Stranger Things with the song Metallica. You saw a lot of things in the social media, and I see a lot of movies too are including songs from I don't know from Pantera, Fear Factory, etc. A lot of well, just rips, etc. Now with this aspect that the metal is more global than now than old days. So how do you see now the essence, the metal scenes in general?
Oh, I think metal's totally thriving, not just with, because of Stranger Things, but it was happening definitely before that. Because I remember there was a time where a lot of metal had went away, like a lot of thrash metal and stuff like that. That's the thing about music sometimes and certain scenes, they come and go. Sometimes, you know, other artists come in, like, back in the 90, about 92, 93, 94, when Nirvana came in, a lot of the metal bands disappeared, you know what I mean? And grunge kind of took over, new metal took over, groove metal kind of was more of a thing. Bands like Pantera, Machine Head, Fear Factory, definitely Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. That stuff got really, really, really popular. Whereas you saw other genres disappear, like the hair metal and the thrash metal. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden, coming back in the late 2000s, boom, all that stuff kind of came back. So, music genres come up and down. Music styles or a certain scene will come. Sometimes they're on top, and sometimes they're at the bottom. But right now metal is thriving, and I think it's great. Um, and I think it's great that certain things like Stranger Things or other, other shows that show, that play metal is great, and I think it's great all around the world. But one thing I've noticed, because during uh, uh, all those different dips in that style, we I've always been working, whether it was in Brujeria or Asesino or Fear Factory or Divine Heresy. I've always continued to work, whether doesn't matter whether the music was whether metal was dying or was popular or not popular. I was always working all around the world. Especially in Latin America. I spent a lot of time in South America from I would say from about 2004 till about 2010. That's mainly where I toured because it didn't die there. It was still thriving. And that's one thing about the Latinos, is that we have the passion. We don't follow those kind of trends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The what I noticed in South America, they don't follow those kind of trends. What I noticed is that when they like a particular type of music, they stick with it for life. Whereas sometimes in America, things, whatever's hot, it's popular. Whatever is not popular, it kind of dies down. That's just how it is, out here. I noticed that in Europe as well is like, whenever, especially places like Germany and Sweden and other places like that, where metal never dies. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's in some countries it just kind of disappears for a little while, then it comes back. I don't know if you understand what I'm trying to say,
Yeah.
but
I understood very well.
you know,
Yeah.
but I've been lucky enough to where I've had uh, my career be successful in other countries. You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to Brujeria and Asesino, I was able to survive um, out there because, it's the popularity never died.
Yeah, yeah. So talking about this aspect and relating, you said no, you said you were living in a world in a music world that ups and downs, a lot of big bands, and no, talking about especially the big bands like Fear Factory, Halloween, Iron Maiden. Well, you're on the top level of the big bands around the world. So if this aspect will disappear because disappearing, I think the big bands will disappear in 30, 40 years. Who knows? That's normal because everyone is get old. It's normally. So, and thus for that, what will be happen when a Fear Factory close its doors? What happens? What bands can you think do you take the torch, the continue, the follow the
There's some
sound that you create?
there's some people who want Fear Factory to close their doors now.
No, no, I don't think so. I think they crazy. For me, no, I love your work since the beginning to now.
Hey man, look, if Mick Jagger can still be playing with the Rolling Stones at that age, 70, 80 years old, I mean, look at Sammy Hagar, he's in his 70s, you know, if those guys can still keep going, I think that, I'm going to be able to keep going. As long as I can walk and stand on stage and playing for an hour or 2 hours, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, but I understood the music from the Rolling Stones because who knows Rolling Stones? I see them live, but his music is their music is more easy to understand or more complex like Fear Factory. The drummer is a lot of complex there. The music technical, a lot of arrangement is very complex. So how do you see now, or how will you see now in 40 or 50 years, do you see will playing still Fear Factory, or you will see use perhaps machines? Who knows?
I mean, yeah, I'll be playing Fear Factory in that many years. I mean, as long as I could, like I said, as long as I could, stand on stage and healthy enough to be out there to perform, I will do it. You know what I mean? Because it's what I love to do. It's my passion,
Okay, okay,
and
okay, okay. So
and I
you
don't
said
see it. I don't see it dying anytime soon.
no, don't worry about. Don't worry. I believe you because you have a lot of words into there. So into this aspect, you said about a few answers there that you love you are the remixes. You're this kind of style. One person doing these remixes of the old songs, and the Fear Factor crisis, the 1992, etc., etc. But and a curious thing happened, in I think this year or perhaps the last year. The software appear as show up as a software that create art now. You are putting right descriptions and these machines create art. So into this aspect now, especially now the music are are involved with this artificial intelligence now because drum machines, guitar machines, bass machines, a lot of machines into now the music. A lot. So now, how do you see the future into the arts talking about with the artificial intelligence, and perhaps you will use these aspects because I think it's not crazy enough that they say the Fear Factor would work with a lot of artificial intelligence for the next records because it's possible now.
Oh, definitely. I mean, we've always talked about that from the beginning. But in the early records, when we first started Soul Vending Machine demanufacture, unfortunately, we didn't really have that technology at the time, and it didn't really progress until obsolete, which is probably our record that kind of describes the future and the past, all together, and how things in the past are going to become obsolete, and how things in the future are pretty much going to be taken over. And, we've pretty much been singing about that concept for quite some time. But as the years progress, of course, we use this technology to enhance our sound or to create certain sounds. But we've never used, sorry, we've only used a drum program on one record, and that was called The Industrialist, which will be coming out sometime uh, early next year, reindustrialized, which is the industrialist with an actual drummer,
Yeah.
instead of the drum machine. So you'll be able to have two choices, a live drummer or the drum machine. But with saying that, we've always embraced technology. We've always talked about where technology could take you in the future. Um, but things are advancing more and more every day. Yeah, you can have you can have you can the machines can play bass, the guitar, the drums, and that's pretty much what people have been doing these days already. They've been using that quite a lot. A lot of bands have been using it, and that's just where it's gone. I mean, I'm all for it. Whatever people want to use to try to create art, go for it. I do like the AI that when you type in a couple of words and it'll create an image
Yeah.
uh, based on what you write. I think that's amazing because some of the stuff that comes out is just out of this world. And I
Yeah.
kind of already been experimenting with that stuff just to see what kind of images I get. But who knows? That might be my next album cover. You never know.
Yes, yes. And talking about this one, are you agreed to hear that perhaps in the future, perhaps 20 or 30 years, who knows, that machines compose all album, not just human into there, so no guitar
Yeah,
player.
I mean, people are already doing that. I mean, I mean, as far as metal, to some aspects, yeah, but as far as like, electronic and techno and all the different styles of electronic music, yeah, people have already been doing that. That's old news.
Yes, yes. But I said that because as you know, the metal scene or the fans are very close mind to when talking about the machines doing all work. I have a lot of friends think these aspects. No, the machine's not one. I prefer the sound, the guitar player, the drum player. And a curious thing, if not if I when you saw a lot of there's a curious thing because a lot of drum players in YouTube they want to play like a machine and not like a human. There be
Yeah,
a
well, I
twist.
I I hate the burst of those bubbles for a lot of people, but there's a bazillion bands that use technology every day to create music. You know, there's a lot of everybody who um thinks that it's purely a live drummer. That is, not that often these days, where it's a real live drummer. Whereas because you're going to use some sort of technology to fix the drums, to align the drums, to make them sound perfect. So, this technology has been used on metal bands for decades now. And, anybody who always thinks that everything is 100% live is it's not exactly the case the whole time, all the time. So I'm sure there's a lot of metal records where you listen to and it's not a real drummer. They're just not telling you. That's just all it is. You know what I mean? I hate to be that guy to send that message to a lot of the metal community, but people use this technology every day to enhance their records, to make their records sound amazing, to make the drummers sound amazing, to make the vocalists sound amazing. There's a lot of guitar editing, there's a lot of drum editing, there's editing everywhere. So that's just the way, I know that some old school people don't like to hear that. Some fans don't like to hear that, but that's pretty much what it is.
Hmm. Great, great. And those, are you interested to re-record perhaps the manufacturer in the future with the new technology? Because you use a technology in 1995, but now the technology is
No,
much better. Perhaps.
no. When we did demanufacture, we didn't really use a lot of. I mean, maybe some of the stuff we were using was definitely cutting edge, but it wasn't like what we're able to do now. Demanufacture was definitely live all the way. So me wanting to re-record that, no, definitely not. Definitely didn't want to re-record demanufacture. Maybe Soul of a New Machine or Concrete, some one of those two records for sure, but not demanufacture, obsolete, or any of those records.
Okay, okay. Well, we are very close to this interview, Dino. And for that, what are aside when you said that you are recording now a new album from Fear Factory, but perhaps you have
Pre-production, pre-production.
pre-production. Yeah, yeah. So, but for the next year, perhaps you will came to Europe tour, perhaps a North American tour, or who knows, a Latin American tour, because the last tour from Fear Factory was, I think more than 10 years or 20 years ago here. So perhaps you a biggest tour here in Latin America.
Well, I'm really hoping that that works out. Right now, we've been talking to some promoters about going over there early June, starting early June. So, definitely from Mexico all the way down to Brazil. So
Great.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that's what happens because I can't wait to get back there.
Nice to hear that. So, well, ending to this interview, perhaps what do you know about, well, talking about this aspect? Now are the bands are releasing singles, a lot of music into there. You are one of the biggest influence for these new bands. Talking about the extreme metal, metal moderns, this kind of stuff. Perhaps do you have time to hear new music from the last year or recommend some new albums?
I'm listening to new music all the time. I can't tell you every band that I listen to, but I definitely listen to new music all the time. But I love the classics. I love going back to what I grew up on. You know, early heavy metal, and from mainly the '80s. All the '80s stuff that I was really into. But of course, I always keep my ear to the ground and to what's new coming out, and I always people are always sending me stuff all the time. Check out my band, check out my band, check out my band. And so I always, try to check it out. And, if it's something that I really like, I get behind it, but right now I can't tell you what I'm listening to new because I'm really focused on doing a new Fear Factory. And I'm trying at the moment to, to stay focused on that.
Mm, okay, nice to hear that. And for talking about your discography as one of the last questions, so you released Sold a New Machines in 1992. They manufactured well, great albums, absolutely great albums. And the last one is perhaps as you told me last year, there is the best effort until to date, until that date. So, and what is your opinion about the fans are very relating to your last answer. So, what's your opinion about the fans when they hear new music from the band, especially the last albums? Things always compare with the previous records, especially for the first records. You're a musician, you have a lot of influence. You think your first influence from the first bands are the best works to date. And for that, what is your opinion about the fans are very attached to the old albums and not I'm not trying to give a chance to the new work for the band.
Yeah. Um, Great. I'm glad that they're attached to the old records and they can hopefully continue to listen to the old records because they are a time and a period that, where we were at that time, and what we were going through at that time. And sometimes that stuff can't be replicated because your life changes, things change over the years. And people can always compare new music to what I've done in the past, and I don't have an issue with that at all whatsoever. Um, as long as they like the new stuff.
Okay, okay. Well, Dino, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoy this one like me doing this one. It's a great pleasure to talk with you again for an interview with Fear Factor. I hope next year you will come to June to see because I never see Fear Factor. I love your work since your first album. I got my CDs here, so I hope really I hope some producer you will bring to Peru or perhaps some countries nearby to here to fly and see you. So perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and Metalerium followers?
Yeah, we definitely Peru is definitely on the list of going to South America and Latin America next year for sure. Um, and gracias para todo. I love the South American fans very much. The Latino community has always embraced a lot of things that I've done over the years, and I 100% appreciate that.